Welcome back to EB Insights. I'm excited to bring the third and final part of the conversation I had with Jeff Lackey, a global TA executive and host of Growing Your Business with People podcast. In this part, we talk about the importance of engaging your employees to help you recruit future talent and also just to be your overall brand ambassadors. Jeff, again, shares some really great personal stories that he's had in this area along the way that I think are very insightful. So this is the third and final part of that discussion. I hope you enjoy.
The same thing goes, if you think about employees, like you want employee referrals to drive, like your number one channel is employee referrals. How do you engage the hearts and the minds of employees to want to go out? And how do you give them access to know who do we need most desperately?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And that's some of the things that I always like having studied it for more than 20 years. Employee referrals, when done right, are not only the best source of your talent, because they have the highest performance, they retain the longest, highest promotability. They're also the highest in diversity. If you want to improve your customer experience, you got to improve your employee experience. If you want to improve your employee experience, you want to also consider what your candidate experience is and how and where are you getting those candidates from. And if a significant 30, 40, 50% of them are not coming from your employee referrals, well, you really should be rethinking what you're doing in terms of your employee referral program, because it is missing the mark and you're missing out on a grand opportunity to basically print money as an organization.
Absolutely. And that's a great kind of way of wrapping up our sort of three-prong approach to employee experience, which is how do you use your employee to actually strengthen your talent brand and your talent attraction. And so to your point, I mean, I don't think anyone needs to look up our employee referrals better employees or not. And the reason is because they are getting a more transparent and authentic insight into who you are as an employer, because they're hearing it from somebody in their network who is currently an employee. And typically those employees are attracting talent like themselves because they are kind of reaching out to their network. So, if we look at it from the sense of going from paid advertising strategy to a content marketing strategy. And content marketing is talked about very broad stroke. But when I'm saying content marketing, I really mean enabling your employees and providing them with content that is going to become your talent brand advertisement. But it is coming from a much more authentic way. You could go study after study as well. And I know LinkedIn has done this year upon year on, studies show employees trust information from other employees 3 times more than they trust from a company, et cetera. So one of the ways that I think you need to first articulate and really engage your employees is be very clear about what your value proposition is. So obviously in the world of employer branding, an EVP is very much talking about what is my value proposition? What is my promise to my current employees and to any future employees about what you get from us as an employer and what we get from you as an employee. It's a contract. It doesn't necessarily mean we want you to think we're the best people ever and we want thousands of you to apply. We want the right people to apply who are looking at this type of role and this type of company and being very transparent. And when we send our employees out through their social media channels to be advocates and ambassadors of that brand, then it becomes much more powerful than us posting ads or promoting posts on LinkedIn or Indeed. Your ambassador program or having your employees be your content marketers is so much more powerful and more effective. So I think articulating your EVP and
Yes.
making sure that it's real and authentic and it's lived internally as much as you're promoting it externally is the first thing. And then the second thing would be to put the content very easily in the hands of your employees so that they can then share that externally. That's what Clickify does, right? That's the whole kind
Right.
of benefit of the Clickify platform, is that it is
Easily
so
sharing.
easily
Hmm.
shareable, and it is so easy to get this into the hands of your employees and to have the control at the administrator level of making sure it's branded, etc. But all of that content is coming from your employees. You're just shaping it and then putting it back in their hands and saying, please post, share, get this out to your networks, because those networks
Yeah.
are much more activated and interested than somebody following our company page.
A
So I think
hundred
there's so
percent.
much you could talk about in this area, but I think that's, to me, that's really where the key is when you look at the employee experience and talent attraction. It's inevitably linked
Yeah.
and always has been.
It has. One of the things I think about is, you know, the marketing and brand people are very, very careful with the reputation of an organization. But unfortunately, sometimes that's to the detriment of the organization, of the message. And I say that because nobody believes a story that's all good all the time,
Right.
right? We know that nothing's all good all the time. Actually, we prefer to hear the story where something really bad happened and we can understand and we can identify and relate to that, right? I tell folks, say, don't be afraid of the cringeworthy. You know, don't be afraid of something that isn't perfect. Actually, beauty is an imperfection, right? And it's seen in that. So let's start to allow people to share things that are more real. And and sometimes the real stories are like, wow, powerful. I still remember CVS. We'd acquired Quorum. Had the nurse practitioner of the Minute Clinic, the daughter of the patient, and a customer experience supervisors at Quorum. And the daughter comes on and said, my wedding was in 2 weeks, and we're doing it in it was we're going to have a wedding in Taiwan. My dad lives in the States, and he is having infusion therapy for his cancer, and he's not given very much longer to live. This infusion therapy is the only thing keeping him alive, and he'd basically almost given up hope of being able to see his daughter get married in Taiwan. But the quorum leader and the nurse practitioner got together and they came up with a plan to be able to train him on how to do his infusion therapy and to be able to get this stuff through TSA on an international flight to another country.
Mm-hmm.
And this and she goes, my dad was able to not only be there but to walk me down the aisle before he passed. Right? I cannot tell you I've seen that video play so many times. I've never seen a dry eye afterwards. Never. Like that, even telling the story still gives me chills. Being a dad, having a daughter, you resonate with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's those real moments that you capture in the course of what you do that really makes a difference. And people want to be proud of the place where they work. They want to share those things where we did, maybe that we were dealing with very, very imperfect circumstances, right? But yet we persevered and we did things that allowed us to serve the patient in a way that maybe wouldn't have been able to be done otherwise without people who actually cared.
Yeah. And it's one of those stories too where it may not be transferable to many people, but
Right.
the impact of the personal nature and the empathy that we talked about earlier, the importance of empathy, is so apparent that you could then sort of think about that from a broader perspective.
You could. And if you're considering a job with an organization and you see that as part of their values,
Mm-hmm.
like you'd say, "Oh, actually, I could see myself there." I joined CVS just shortly after they quit smoking, right? They put out all the cigarettes out of all the stores, and I had my dad passed away because essentially of the related to cigarette smoking. Died at 63. Um, and my mom smoked 4 or 5 packs a day, and so I was surrounded with smoking all my life. And and while that wasn't the primary or number one reason, the fact that they were living their values to the
Mm-hmm.
cost of a $2 billion write off to the bottom line, that actually that was a source of pride for me to say I'm gonna put my name beside this organization. I'm gonna put it there with pride because I
Right.
believe in the things that we do. Like if you're an executive, that's how you want your folks to feel. And you want to open up those opportunities to create those moments where they can. And part of this is by the things you do, but others is by the things that your team can do to be able to reach down into the organization and pull out those stories, but also be able to take and release the stories that you're aware of and give them to your teams so not only they can be proud of it, but they can share with others to say, this is who we're about. This is what we're about. This is why we do what we do. CVS was never known for as an easy place to work. And I never minced words when I said, if you're afraid of work, this is the wrong place for you. If you have any allergy to work whatsoever, this is not a good place for you. But if you don't mind working very hard and very long hours, and you enjoy and you are dedicated to the impact, and you believe in the purpose, you resonate with the purpose and reflect the values, you will be exceptionally successful here. And that's the message that you want as a leader. And I think organizations like Clickify, which allow you to amplify those really cool messages. And if you don't have those cool messages right now, if you're a leader, go find them. And that's go start talking, walking the floors, having conversations, and say, hey, have you know, I wonder, what happened today that really got you inspired? Or what happened this week or this month? Is there anything that really was an inspiring moment for you? Just, in the course of conversation.
It's and that's the thing is that those stories do
Hmm.
exist. It is finding them and uncovering them. And
Yeah.
if we go back to how do you engage leaders to be better people leaders, charge them with finding these nuggets and these stories. Charge them with finding it, and and
Be a
and I
shadow of the leader and do it yourself. Start doing it
absolutely
yourself and then start setting that expectation
share
for
your
your first
own,
line.
yeah, share
Share
your
your
own
own.
stories, share your own thing. And it's interesting because you talk about your experience at CVS.
Hmm.
So when I was at PwC, one of the tenets we had was, let's not just put out a shiny penny. Let's
Hmm.
be super transparent and authentic, that especially if you're going to be someone who joins us in audit,
Hmm.
your life from January to April is, it's pretty intense. And there's
Hmm.
not going to be getting around that. We're not going to pretend you're going to work 8-hour days.
Hmm.
So the stories that we would pull to talk about at that point were stories like, and the ones that are coming to mind immediately is, we had one relatively junior individual on the audit team who was a DJ.
Hmm.
And during busy season, you work weekends, you're working 7 days a week. And so he and his team had agreed, I think somebody else on the team taught yoga, and there were some other things that they wanted to do from a personal perspective. So they had an arrangement on their team that they did on themselves, which was, in order to help you accommodate what you want to do, which is this,
Hmm.
they would, as a team, collectively cover that vacancy during that time, and vice versa. So they kind of
Yeah.
had these team agreements ahead of time of things that were going to come up during busy season. As a parent, you could imagine that could be plays or sporting events, etc., that
Right.
you knew your team would cover you and support you, and you would
Yeah.
dive back in and do that. And that's the stories we would tell. So the story wasn't that you would have an easy ride. It was, yeah, this is intense. But this is how, the culture works here. We care about, and there is that sort of flexibility where you can, work within those confines to create an experience that is more authentic and unique and important to you. So, if you think about what advice we would give to leaders,
Mhm.
number one, you have to be able to empower your employees. Going back to psychological safety,
Mhm.
they will be, not only will they be able to share some of their authentic stories, they will be rewarded for sharing that. So rewarding does not necessarily mean they'll be paid, but it is going to be, you're celebrated for contributing to that narrative and to sharing their experiences within your culture. So there has to be demonstration from the top that it's very important and that people
Mhm.
at the top are doing this, and we want you to do that as well. You need to celebrate those unique stories. It's going to be a quilt of stories, and none of which are the same, which is fantastic. The
Mhm.
more stories and diversity you have in those stories,
Mhm.
the more talent you're able to really attract as a result. So putting that into place and encouraging that sharing, getting them to understand that you want them to help you find the next generation of talent. You are successful here. We want more of you here. Help us find that talent. So to your point, the employee referral program,
Mhm.
but it's more than just we'll reward you monetarily for having a successful. It
Yeah.
is, we want you to be out there talking about this and advocating for this. We want you to really reach your network. So enabling them, creating an environment where it is not only accepted, but you're celebrating people who are sharing their unique experiences at your company. I think those are all extremely important. And if you think about it, okay, well, how do you really get a CEO to care about it? I would dare you to look at your recruitment budget right now, especially your recruitment marketing budget right now, and see what you're spending in your LinkedIn and
Right.
Indeed and all of these other platforms. You could reduce that by 60%. At,
Mhm.
at least by 60% if you
Yeah.
really activated your employees to go out there and talk about your brand.
Mhm.
It's more
For sure.
successful. It's going to hit more of your target talent because their networks are your
Yeah.
target talent.
Yes.
B, it's more believable because it's not a paid advertisement.
Mhm.
And you could easily find cost savings by doing this. No question.
And as much as I love doing it, I do focus groups for folks and do them for executives and all this. Listen, if you're a smart person, you can run a focus group.
Yeah.
And honestly, a leader, unless you really want to separate out and get something that you're afraid they won't tell the leader, but if you really have set that bad of a culture already, you really need to do some real, introspection at that point. I would be encouraging you to do little mini focus groups periodically throughout every year, every quarter or so. Grab a small group of folks and just hit a topic and talk with them in a very semi unstructured way. Hit the things you want to talk about, but allow the free flow of ideas. And remember that you need to excite them by the what with the what, but then edify them by the how.
Hmm.
You want to build them up. That's part of your job as leaders, just not to inspire them with where we're going in this. We're got a moonshot or whatever. We're going to have to do this great thing. It's also building them up so that they along with everybody else can achieve that by and if you think about your role as a leader, that's how you get followers. It's not just by having some inspiring statement. It's actually building people up to be able to help achieve that inspiration. And then don't forget to tell the story. All right. And to allow other people to tell their story. I think you hit it on it. Um, if you if you don't find a way to provide this to the folks or provide them a vehicle that allows them to share the story, well, a couple things happen. One is that the story never gets out there, which, to your point, could evaporate a whole lot of unnecessary spend that is really kind of flushed down the toilet with some of the mass advertising that is way overpopulated, hyper competition. You're not getting the bang for your buck that you used to. But the second part is that you're missing out on an opportunity for engagement, because that person, when they retell it, they're putting their name beside your company on this particular story, and they're saying, "I'm proud to be here. I'm excited about what our future is. I can't wait because this makes me feel good about what I do and why I do it."
Right.
And you can't replace that. There's no substitute for intrinsic motivation. No, every psychologist would tell you intrinsic motivation, that motivation that comes from inside, outweighs all extrinsic external forces.
Great. I think we could probably go down 12 more rabbit holes with this, because it's so core to the foundation of how you lead and grow a business. And your whole platform, and I want you to also end this by promoting where people can find your podcast. It's all about, if you are a leader and you depend on people to grow your business, then these are the things that you need to pay attention to, and employee experience and how to build a stronger employee experience is so important. So Jeff, thank you so much for being on the Clickify podcast. Thank you for having me on your podcast. And can you just let everybody know again where they can find you, and maybe highlight a couple of the most recent guests that you've had that we can look forward to seeing?
So thank you so much, Sondra. As always, this has been a huge pleasure. You can go to Growing Your Business with People, a podcast dedicated to business leaders who want to grow their business with their biggest and most important asset and investment, which is people. That can be found at gybwp.com, growingyourbusinesswithpeople.com. Look it up on LinkedIn. We have a company page, YouTube, and 17 different audio channels. The other thing is we have some really cool guests. We've had Harvey Castro, who actually wrote the very first book on AI and healthcare in the globe. So he's affectionately referred to as Dr. GPT.
Wow.
So yeah, he's been on Nancy Grace and a bunch of other MSNBC and all that. Is a routine person on there. We've had some of the folks that have actually been the co-founder of Amazon Web Services, Matt Domo. We've had the former head of TA for the agency, also known as the CIA. So we've and more recently we've had some really amazing authors, including Bob Tiede, who's talking about leading with questions, and international best-selling authors. And one of my favorites still, which is Kim Adele Randall, who has a hairdresser in the boardroom, which talks about the struggles that some people go through, especially if they come up through the ranks of saying this imposter syndrome that says, even though I'm operating at CEO and board level positions, they're going to discover that I'm just a hairdresser. So some pretty wild conversations, anywhere from deep AI to running $180 billion businesses to a hairdresser in the boardroom. You can get pretty much and if you want to see some of the episodes with William Arruda and Aaron Falcione, you'll also see myself and Sondra interviewing those individuals. So some of my favorites.
Yeah, I'll post those. I'll post a link to your podcast, and I'll include those two as well below. And thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I look forward to our next discussion.
Thanks so much, Sondra. Bye-bye.
Thank you. A huge thanks to my guest, Jeff Lackey. I think that was such a great 3-part series talking about AI, engaging employees, and just overall developing great leaders and how leaders can be stronger in the business. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. Please don't forget to tune in to Jeff's podcast, which is Growing Your Business with People. You can find it on his website. You can also find it on YouTube and on anywhere podcasts are hosted. He has some incredible guests and really just some overall really insightful, engaging commentary. So I really hope that you get a chance to tune in to one of those. And thank you again for joining us at EB Insights. Until next time.